Let's go ahead and go to the 8th, where this was picked before one Johnny Rodriguez was announced to be joined the team via transfer. This is a team that has a lot of great things going for it, but the coach, that is not Richard Sanchez, but Dennis Sanchez, is now gone. John, who else did they lose?
I do just have to say, like, hiring Antonio Nocerino continues to be one of the wildest things that happened this offseason. But this team lost JC Ngando, Grayson Duty, and Usman Jabong at the end of MLS loans. Corey Bennett and Joe Hafferty were sold for club record transfer fees on back-to-back days. They brought in a couple of interesting players, Johnny Rodriguez chief amongst them, honestly. Knight Pickering is a name people know. Yunus Boudadi came in late as a kind of preseason trialist. A lot of MLS Next Pro college grad type kids who could end up being good, but are a bit of a question mark. Of that group, Patrick Leal stands out in the midfield, and then Turner Humphrey was a champ with North Texas last year.
Where it was put into the chat of club record transfers, where Las Vegas did have 2 club record transfers in a row. And Rodriguez was a club record transfer for Oakland. We'll talk about that later. This is a team that is fascinating to me, Phil, because you see players from last year that you learned to love. You see Noel, and you know Knight from his time with Memphis and the U.S. Youth National Team. You see Smart, who's probably going to be going over to Europe sooner rather than later. Nigro was great. Arozarena really came into his own. Adams is fantastic in his own right. Is it going to work under Nocerino?
I guess that's the question. Like, I mean, if Dennis Sanchez was the coach of this team, I think you would literally have, like, we'd be talking about this as one of like the best teams in the West. And that, so the question mark is basically Antonio Nocerino with a serious squad. And I think we do have to take this seriously. Like I know we've all rated them, you know, on the bubble, all of that stuff, but I do think, like, expectation wise, this team should make the playoffs. Like off the back of the names on the roster, and the presence of one player in particular, Coleman Gannon. If Coleman Gannon is not in the playoffs again, I will riot. So no, I think really it has put a lot of weight on Nocerino, and the fact that, you know, him proving that he was like just saddled with a Miami team that was an anchor around his neck. Because if this Lights team like is slow out of the blocks, I would say that like all of the heat is going to go right to Nocerino pretty quickly.
Ryan, this is a team that was on the come up last year. They really showed up and showed out. They proved everything that you could of, if you invest, the wins will come. They were the poster child of put money into your club. Are they going to be able to continue that growth?
Yeah, I mean, they really struck it like an unexpected route to the Western Conference Final that we saw from last season. I know a few of us had predicted them to at least advance as far once we got to the playoffs, but like in preseason, we were not like having any expectations for this Lights team. But then they had a really fantastic season from last year, and it really just felt like something that they're trying to build off of, which is why the Nocerino hire makes it all the more kind of baffling. But the fact that they had the 2 club record outgoing transfers and then turn that into Johnny Rodriguez proves that they're willing to go out and spend. That I feel like this is a team that really does have high expectations this year. And if, like, going back to what Phil says, if we're going to compare it to other teams in Europe, this really feels like a Julian Lopetegui at West Ham type of situation, where on paper, that's a very talented squad that should be at least top half, but for whatever reason, it didn't work under Lopetegui, and it really kind of puts the onus on Nocerino to make this work early and quickly, or else it's going to be kind of looking at the question marks. And one of the things they luckily have to open the year is a lot of home games like Tampa Bay, New Mexico, Orange County, Tulsa, Loudoun, and Colorado Springs to all open the years at home. So it really just kind of has to be, how does this team come out of the gates, and are they going to be quality enough to kind of repeat from last season?
You know, Phil, you kind of brought up the Will Smith in a flower costume. The entire time I've been thinking about Nocerino joining Las Vegas and not bringing any of the young Italian kids to Las Vegas with him. The entire time I'm just kind of thinking of that scene with Will Smith when he's just like, how come he don't want me, man?
All the Italian kids just at the bus. They're hanging out in the living room of whatever shared mansion they're living in of Ricardo Silva's.
Do you think he's still going to wear the bib every time?
He's got to.
Right?
He's got to.
Gotta.
It's as iconic now as Ryan Martin's golf hat, like out in Loudoun. It is just part of him now.
John, this is where I'm going to just kind of ask the question where you have Noel, you have Rodriguez, and you have Knight all up top. How do you fit all those guys on the pitch? Because those are three starters that honestly should be playing day in, day out, at least for my...
Knight Pickering isn't. I mean, in terms of preseason minutes, in terms of what he got in Memphis, maybe he can become one. And I think before the news today, that was kind of the big question of Las Vegas will go as far as his development can take them. Given Johnny Rodriguez in the mix, I think he's mostly going to be backup minutes again. And I agree with you that like the potential is there. This is somebody who has shown flashes. As you're nailed down number 9, maybe not. But it's part of kind of the consensus, or rather like the idea that this team is going to be young. They're going to rotate quite a bit. There are going to be opportunities for some of these players to get real minutes in meaningful games. And it would be easy to imagine. Maybe Nocerino decides Noel is going to play back in the midfield and we're going to go with 2 proper number 9s. That would be the easy route to get Rodriguez paired with Knight and see what happens. And frankly, I think that's a possibility because we don't know much about Nocerino's style. Like, there were no lessons to take away from that Miami team, just given how bad they were and how undermanned they were. So it's going to be really kind of interesting to see what Las Vegas looks like when they hit the pitch. And how does the philosophy change? Or is he just kind of copy pasting what Dennis Sanchez laid down?
I guess this is just kind of a question for the group. Is this Las Vegas Lights team the most interesting team across the USL Championship and League One?
It's certainly never been quiet off the pitch.
Lexington is probably
that was my answer. Yeah,
like up there. But I mean, I would say like Vegas games are going to be box office for sure.
Okay. All right. Any final thoughts on this Lights team?
I just shout out to the Monterey Bay fans in the chat who are saying that Vegas is aspirational, because can you imagine anybody wishing they were Vegas like 2 years ago? And now it's like, true. Man, if only we could be Vegas. That's crazy. Shout out to the Lights, and shout out to Jose Bautista for changing the trajectory of that organization.
We'll just have to see if Nocerino is still in charge for when Las Vegas hosts the Miami FC on September 13th.
My Super Bowl.